Awesome. Hi, guys. So, thanks for not only staying for my session, but also giving Munish a chance to present, his company as a TSP. So, as I don't have to introduce Munish, he's like I joked earlier, he was the ecosystem pretty much, some time ago. So, Munish is the CEO and co-founder of Finfactor. And as all of you know, the company Cookie Jar also is licensee for the AA. So over to you, Munish. I'm going to hide myself and over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Vamsi. Thanks for the introduction and welcome on to this session. So, what I will be covering as part of this session are the data standard APIs. What they entail, what FIP needs to do, what an FIU needs to do, and where Finfactor actually comes in play in order to help as a TSP in order to help FIUs or FIPs come on board the A ecosystem. So, I mean, first thing is why do we need these data standard APIs, right? I think we all know that in order for the ecosystem to be interoperable and scalable, we need to have some standards, and that's where Rebit and of course the ecosystem stakeholders have defined standards and specifications. Adhering which need to be adhered to, and that's actually one of the key starting points for any institution as an FIU to participate on the A ecosystem. And of course, it also solves a problem of interoperability and scalability of the ecosystem. Without having standards, things will be all over the place. Will be very hard for institutions to actually integrate and talk to each other. So how can you actually get yourself onto the ecosystem? One is either you build your own as per these standard specs, or you kind of work with a third party TSP like one of us, who then help you onboard yourself onto the A ecosystem and have provide the platform that actually builds all the nuts and bolts of the A data standard APIs. And the third is what are actually these data standard APIs? One is the standard API specifications as per Rebit, which is the specs for FIPs, FIUs, and As. So these are the standard specifications. If you go to the Rebit site, you'll actually see there are three sets of specs which are there, and those specs define what all the each of the institutions need to do. Now, these specs are actually the APIs which define the server-side flows between an FIP in A and FIU, and which cover different aspect of those flows, which is discovery, linking, consent request, and data fetch. And of course, there are other notification-related APIs. They don't cover and define is the A customer interaction and the user interface flows. So each of the A's can actually implement their own user journeys. Each of the FIUs may want to have their own user journeys in order for them to interact with an A and get the customer's consent. So that's left up to the FIUs and A's to take care of. On the FIP side, of course, it's more of a system platform that interacts with the institution, that the entity core banking system or any other source system. And the last thing is it defines the schema structure for the various FI types. So there are about 19 asset classes which are supported on the ecosystem, and each of them have different FI schemas or financial info types. So all those, each of the FI types have standards in a specific structure. So each of the institution or entities like FIP, FIU, and A will need to implement, actually more relevant for the FIPs and FIU. They will have to implement the data as per that particular structure. So, what is the process for an FIP to actually adopt the APIs, and what all actually are the APIs that are covered in the for FIPs? One is the first part is of course the discovery and linking of the customer accounts. On the basis of strong identifier, and of course in the A ecosystem right now, mobile number is used as the primary identifier for discovery of accounts. Once that's done, the FIP system should have the ability to actually receive a digitally signed consent artifact from the A, and of course storing it, because that will be then used for further validation of the A, of the data request coming from the A. The third is receiving the data request from A, validating that the request is as per the consent artifact, and of course initiating a fetch into the source system of the FIP, or it could be either the core banking system or any other system that the FIP integrates with. Getting the data, and then of course basis the fetching the information as per the FI request, converting that to into a standard data format as per the Revit specified data format for that particular FI type. So for example, if it's a bank, and a bank, you need to serve gets the account information for a savings or a current account, you need to convert that information which comes from the core banking into the structure in the specified standard format of the ecosystem, and then encrypting the information as per Revit standard specifications. Now, again, the methodology or the algorithms used to encrypt that data is also part of the standard specs. And once that's done, the FIP needs to notify that the data is ready, and then the A will then actually initiate a FI fetch, and the FIP would need to then process the FI fetch and return the encrypted information. So this is what pretty much the FIP needs to do, and of course. That platform should be able to support different FI types based on the FIP that it is. For example, banks may need to support term recurring deposit, or the savings or current account, and then maybe an insurance FIP would need to support the insurance schema. So what do FIUs actually need to do? I would rather break it down into different parts. One is they need to work on the use case primarily. That could be exploring various use cases of the ecosystem where they can actually use the A information. One is on either it could be loan monitoring, it could be lending or wealth advisory, depending on what the FIU has to offer to the customer. Second is they need to work on what kind of customer journey and experience they want to offer to the customers. That is how they intend to integrate with the A, because their A might offer various options for integration, is either through a web redirect, or it could be an SDK based integration, or it could be even in an assisted mode. So they need to work out on what kind of customer journey experience they'll provide. And thirdly, of course, they need to have that system in place to do all the processing and uh, the implementation of the A standard, the FIU standard APIs as per the specifications. Now, in terms of that, that's actually a backend system which involves raising a consent request, which the customer will have to approve, processing all notifications coming from the A. And again, once the customer approves a consent, using the approved consent to make a data request, and then processing all the notifications which come from the A whenever data is ready, and of course decrypting the data once the A has actually provided the data, the encrypted data to the FIU. Now all of this requires some system in place so that the FIU can actually interact with the A ecosystem. Similarly, in FIP would need to have some system in place for them to actually interact on the A ecosystem. So that's where we come in as Finfactor, and we have two product offerings. One is the ConnectHub platform for FIPs, and that actually implements all of the specs as per the Revit standards. It would then also have the ability to integrate with the core banking system or any other source systems of the FIP and convert the data which is fetched from the system into the Revit standard formats. And second, we also have what we call Fincens as a platform for FIUs. And this platform allows the FIU to actually come on board ecosystem. So all of the nuts and bolts which they need to build out is actually taken care by the implementing this platform. We also have additional features on the FIU side, which is to, once we receive the decrypted information, we have the ability to actually analyze bank statements or do the categorization and etc., and do some provide some additional data points post the analysis. Where are we? I mean, in terms of our implementation, we've already implemented our FIP and FIU with the one bank already, which is live, and multiple implementations are underway. We are right now live with a couple of NBFCs, and again, multiple implementations are underway. We've already started working with some insurance companies, and and of course RIAs, who are the registered investment advisors, and so there are multiple implementations underway with both FIUs as well as FIPs. So what is the real benefit if I mean, there are two options: either the FIU or FIP can actually build out their own system, or they may want to rather take a TSP and then onboard themselves on the ecosystem. What are the benefits of really going with a TSP? I would say one is that you can actually focus on coming on your ecosystem. You can come on the ecosystem fairly quickly. You can actually focus on the business rather than looking at the IT aspects of it, because these are Revit, they're standard APIs. They're going to keep changing as the ecosystem continues to evolve. And so, as part of the offering that we do, we will obviously have regular platform upgrades. So obviously, the time to market will reduce, and then you don't need to spend more on expenditure in terms of capital required to build a system and then maintain it. Rather, if you look at working with a TSP, you could actually get focus more on, it'll be an operating budget rather than a capital expenditure. So some of these benefits are there, and I think mainly is the key thing is that quickly to come on board and work on the use case, and then leverage the A ecosystem to the fullest potential. So what is the ConnectHub platform that we offer for FIPs? Of course, it allows you to come on the ecosystem quickly. It's low maintenance. We are fully compliant with the Revit standard APIs for FIPs. It's A agnostic, so it has the ability to service requests coming from any account aggregator. It integrates with the central registry, which is hosted by Semati, and it has flexible architecture where you can actually integrate with with specific core banking system, and then converts the information as per Revit standards. See, all of the framework that we offer is scalable, and it can be deployed either on a cloud or on-prem. So it depends on the FIP how they want to leverage it. So what do we offer from a Fincens FIU perspective? Again, we have a platform that implements all of the Revit standard APIs. Again, it's A agnostic. It can actually service requests going to all account aggregators. It has the ability to either integrate with the central registry and token service hosted by Semati. We also provide additional administrative UI control for either it could be for raising a customer consent request, for creating templates, consent templates, or if you actually want to monitor and track the consent request, or maybe look at some stats and dashboards coming out in terms of how many are the pending consents and how many are the data requests that yet to be serviced. In addition to that, we also, as part of the Fincens platform, the admin UI is role-based, where we actually have some governance and control. So not everyone would have access to it, because the decrypted information is actually stored within the Fincens platform. But once it's utilized, it gets purged automatically. It's also a flexible in terms of the framework, because everything is secure and over SSL or TLS connection. So our architecture is scalable and open. We use industry standard frameworks, which is then makes it very easy for anyone who wants to use it on on-prem model. Or we also have a cloud option, which is obviously much better, because then the maintenance and upgrades for the platform becomes much seamless. It's microservices based, which means it will have minimal downtime and of course fast deployment, and it's DevOps ready, so which means we can continuously deploy and change as the ecosystem APIs or standards change. So this is pretty much what I wanted to cover, and I'm happy to take any questions if anyone does have.
Thanks, Manish, for that succinct presentation. Guys in the audience, anyone, particularly those from banks and NBFCs, any questions for Manish? Please post them here, or you can raise your hand and we can discuss. Else, we can snatch a few minutes away from a Friday evening. Okay, awesome. I think all one can say is perhaps it was very clear, Manish.
I hope so.
Let's see, is there a question here? Yeah, okay. So there is one question, Manish, two questions actually.
Yeah. So data is purged after consuming. How does the consumption happen? So let's say once the FIU receives the data, now if the once the data is processed, uh, based on the consent parameters, the information is then purged out. So we don't store the information for lifetime. It's only stored until the consent is valid. Does that answer the question?
Super. Any more questions, guys? Okay. Perhaps we'll then call this a close. Thank you for this,
Thanks. Thank you.
for the effort, Munish, and for taking the time. Thanks. We still have 40 people in session. That's good. Thanks, guys, and have a good weekend.
Thanks all. You too. Bye.
Bye bye.